welcome to our 5th clay workshop. I'm Hannah and I work at Flying Fish Studio in Sheffield, and it's really lovely to have you join us today. If you're joining us from a parent's account, just make sure you have their permission before commenting, but if that's okay, then it would be lovely to hear from you. Any questions throughout, any comments? It's lovely to feel like we're together today and creating. So we'll be making these clay monsters today. Okay, yours can be a totally different style. I'm just going to teach you a few techniques that you might like to use to then create this or something totally different. I just show the techniques and it's up to you as to what you'd then like to create. So we can create large ones, we can create dilly ones, we can create like one big one, or we can create lots of smaller ones. But I'll run through the material and equipment list that we'll need today, and then I'll run you through the process and we'll enjoy creating together. So what we'll need is a sheet of greaseproof paper or baking paper. That's just so that our clay doesn't stick to our table. We'll also need a pot of water. We'll need a rolling pin. We'll obviously need some clay, because that's what we're making our monsters out of today. So I just got some air dry clay. I've chosen white for mine, just because the colours, when I paint it later once it's dry, they'll be more vibrant if I choose the white rather than you can get all the terracotta colours. I'll also need, if you've got any cookie cutters, then that's great, you can use those to cut out shapes. You'll need a knife, again with that just make sure you've got parent supervision. And then for after this workshop, this is what we'll be using to paint our monsters with. So I've just got some acrylic paint here, so lots of different colours. I've got some gold, and I've also got some PVA glue for glazing to give that shiny look to it. So these are optional, and this is something that I will show you how you might like to use, but then we'll be leaving our clay monsters to dry before we do any painting today. So that won't be done today, that'll be left once we've left our clay monsters to dry. Yay, people are starting to join. Really lovely to see you here. Hello. So yes, these are all the materials that you'll need. So let's get going. You'll have learned, if you were joining us for our previous clay workshops, you'll know how to make a pinch pot. So I'll be running through that process again, because essentially these clay monsters start as a pinch pot and then we shape them afterwards. So do make sure you're wearing clothes, or it doesn't matter if you get some clay on them, because clay can stain, and also if you make sure your work surfaces are covered. So just, I've wrapped my clay up really well from a few weeks ago, so it's still nice and wet, it hasn't dried out at all. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to get a little bit of this now. It's totally up to you as to how much of this you would like to use, depending on how big you'd like your monster to be. So I'm going to, hello, I'm going to make a large clay monster, I think. So I'm going to get probably the size of, an apple, I'm going to say. I'm going to cut some off. So if you've got one of these knives, then you can, and it's not very sharp, then you can just cut down like this, making sure not to break the knife. I'm just using a plastic knife. Okay, and then once we've decided how much we want this excess clay, we've got to make sure this goes back into our packet. So we'll just seal that up And if you just make sure that your clay is kept in a place which isn't too warm, because that will dry it out, okay? And not exposed to too much sunlight either. And then what we're going to do is with our clay, I absolutely love the feel of this clay. We need to make sure that it's a bit more pliable than it currently is, because at the moment it's quite hard. It's just how it comes in the packet. So I'm just kneading it a little bit. I'm just using this area of my hand, just like you would if you were kneading bread. Don't worry if you don't do this exactly, and you can just squidge it in your hands if you prefer. We're just making it more pliable. Okay. Right. Beautiful material to work with, clay. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is with my piece of clay, I'm just going to roll it into a ball. Now, if you miss any of this, if you're live joining us, do just comment and I'll try and catch you up. Also, if you do miss anything, all of these videos are going to be recorded and are available for viewing later, in case you want to go through anything. So, just rolling it into a ball. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thumb. So we're making a pinch pot now. I'm going to use my thumb and push it into the centre of the clay. Okay, so I've got a little dip in here now. Hello! Okay, so I've got a little dip in the centre. So I've got my clay out, I've kneaded it to make it pliable, I've rolled it into a ball, and now I've made a dip in the centre. And it's from here that I'm going to make my pinch pot. So all I'm going to do is with my thumb in the middle where I've created that hole, I'm going to pinch around the outside. We call it a pinch pot because we make it by pinching. I would normally hold it like this in front of me, I find it easier, but I'm just going to hold it like this so you can see. So I'm turning it and pinching it nice and evenly. Okay, we want it to be not too thin, the walls, although it's going to be really fragile, but we also don't want them too thick. One reason is because it's going to take ages to dry if you leave it really thick. So I'm holding it like this and I'm just moving it around with my thumb in the middle and pinching it around the outside. If you want smaller clay monsters, then you'll just need less clay. Now with these clay monsters, it might be that you'd like to have them as like a little ornament on the side, or one idea is you could hide them places, and you could maybe ask family members to try and find them, or even just hide them places with maybe like a little note on them. A little note, maybe words of kindness or anything like that around your home, and then your family members might find them and it'll be a nice little surprise for them. So you can use them how you would like. So I'm just working my way around. Make sure that you're getting some of the bottom clay up, so you've not just got a really thick bottom, you've actually squidging, pinching some of that around as well, so it's nice and even. Something that can typically happen is these top bits here get really thin, because sometimes people gravitate towards just wanting to pinch the top. Just make sure that it's the same thickness all the way around, giving a nice solid structure. I can feel that the bottom is a lot thicker at the moment, so I'm just going to pinch some of that clay up. So for those that are just joining us now, you may recognise this technique, pinch pot technique. Lots of different techniques in clay. This is just one of them. Okay. Lovely. Okay. And now, once I'm happy with my piece, and you might recognise which part of this it's going to turn into. It's the body of your monster. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to smooth down this edge, because at the moment it's quite bumpy. If you want a bumpy monster, absolutely fine. But I can see there's also a few areas in here which they almost look like little cracks. So I'm just going to smooth those over. And all I need to do for that is just dip my finger in a little bit of water. You hardly need any water. Really hardly need any. You can even try without water if you prefer at first. And I'm just smoothing over the areas that I want to be smooth. So to hold this, instead of just holding it like this, in which case it's more likely to collapse, I'm putting four fingers inside here, gives a solid base to then smooth down. So I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand to, might look like the opposite on your camera, but I'm using my right hand to smooth down, my left hand to hold it, give it some stability. If you did join in with our previous workshops, it would be lovely if you did want to share anything about whether you've used your pots and your life pebbles, whether you've used them for anything in particular, how they've worked. It'd be lovely to hear that. Share any ideas, maybe other things that you've made out of clay as well. That would be really lovely. Give more inspiration for people. Okay, so I'm just smoothing this down. You may also like to, if you joined in our workshop last week, you'll have learned how to marble clay. So that's when we get two different types of clay, and then we mix it. We use a technique which effectively mixes them together, but so that you can still see the separate clays, and it merges into each other, called marbling. And you could create your clay monster using that marbling technique. You don't just have to use one type of clay, you could use two or three. Okay, so just smoothing it down. Okay, I'm going to smooth the top as well. Now with this edge here, it may be that you'd like it smooth. So here, this one, I have like a really smooth area. So this opening, you might recognise as being the top of this pinch pot. If you turn it on its side and squish it a little bit, there we have the monster's mouth. So you may like to have it nice and smooth, or you might like to put texture in it. I have never used this texture for the mouth before, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to cut out zigzag lines all the way around, but you can keep it smooth if you would like, or I might not do it all the way around. I might just do the bottom. The bottom is going to be zigzaggy on my one. Yeah, that's great. The possibilities are endless. These are just a few monsters that I've made, but yours might look totally different. It might not even be monsters at all, it might be totally different creatures. So here I'm just using my knife to do a zigzaggedy bottom to it. So I'm going to do this along the bottom here. Cutting it along. Oh, I wonder if even these bits that I cut off we might be able to use for something. Nice little triangles. Might be able to use those for teeth actually. And you can think with your clay monster, we can add anything to it. So here I've got some horns that are coming off. I've got eyes that poke out from the top of its head. I've got a really long wiggledy tongue. It might be that you want teeth, it might be that your monster has hair, it might be that your monster has ears, it might be that they have a really long nose, anything really. It would be really lovely to hear, hiya, it'd be really lovely to hear any suggestions that you have as to what you'd like to do. So this one hasn't got any teeth at all, okay? This one here has, I'll just hold it up nice and close so you can see. Yeah, so it's got some teeth in this one. What's this one got? Oh, this one's got, which I haven't yet painted actually. I'm going to show you painting this one today. It's got a tongue that goes all the way around the side, all the way up to its eye. So yes, you can decide the little accessory bits that you'd like to put on. But for the moment, I've decided to cut out the top so that the bottom, cut out the bottom so that it's all zigzaggedy. Okay, I'm just going to smooth over this top area. So you know we've got a little crack in it. So I'm just supporting it. If you want to smooth an area like this, I'm just supporting it underneath and then smoothing it down. Okay. Sometimes, if it doesn't smooth down over just with your finger, you can just use like a little bit of your fingernail, not too much, don't dig in too much, but just use a little bit of your fingernail just to smooth that down. And also think about how many eyes does your monster have? You know, does it have one eye? Does it have 2 eyes? Does it have 8 eyes? Okay. And just as I mentioned in our last workshop, it can give a really professional finish if you smooth off the edges. So at the moment, if I lift up the beginnings of my clay monster, here it's got the zigzaggediness, but you can see there are some like little bits of clay that's sticking off, they're not quite smooth. So to get that kind of professional finished look, I'm going to use my fingers to smooth it down. The lovely thing about using clay is it's so easy to change things, just to smooth things down. It only requires just your fingers to do the work for you. If you want to get into little gaps, you might want a cocktail stick or the end of a paintbrush, and you can just smooth it down using that as well. The end of the paintbrush, not the bristle end, just the end that you would hold, because that just can be used to smooth areas down. So I'm just doing a mixture of the cocktail stick and my fingers, just because my fingers don't get into the slimmer gaps. Smoothing that down. Okay. Right, so now I've finished doing that, I'm then going to decide on the extra bits that I want to do. So I think I'm going to give my monster some hair, and to do this I'm going to get some more clay. It would be really lovely to hear if you have any ideas what you're creating. Adding texture as well. I know a few weeks ago when we were adding texture we had so many wonderful ideas, like broccoli and paper clips and all sorts of things. So I'm just kneading this little bit of clay here. This is what I'm going to make the hair with. And I think I'm just going to do like three little bits of hair sticking up near the back on the top. I think that's going to be the style of mine for today. Okay, and to do that I'm just going to roll it into a sausage shape. And then once I've got the shape that I would like, I'm then going to stick this onto here. But we don't just pop it on and stick it like that. A way of securing it, the technique is called score and slip. Okay, so what that means is we score it, and that's where we create little hatch marks on our clay. I'll show you what this is. So this is a scoring bit, creating the hatch marks. Oh, a mohawk, yeah! Yeah, absolutely. Almost like this one, but this is more spikes. So for scoring, you make a hatching. So it's where you do lines one way and then lines the other way. So I'm going to choose where I want to place my hair, so it's going to be back here. I'm going to score, so scoring, creating the hatch marks. Okay, so I've scored it like this. And then I'm going to use slip. Okay, so slip is another name for watered down clay. So it's not like slipping over. That's another way of interpreting the word slip. But in this instance, slip is watered down clay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of water on our fingers. We don't need much, and we're just going to wet that area. Okay. And I'm going to do the same on the piece that I'm sticking. So we score and slip on both our pieces. The piece that we're sticking down and the piece that we're sticking onto. I'm going to score it with my cocktail stick or anything else similar to a cocktail stick. So scoring it. So creating those hatch marks. Creating slip, so watering it down a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to stick it on. So I'm just going to stick it down. Might need a bit of a wiggle, and it also might need a bit of a smooth. So it's score, slip, stick, smooth. Okay, they're like the 4 S's that we work with, but it's also just known as score and slip. Score and slip technique. So to smooth it down, I'm just using my finger to blend it in. You can use the back of a paintbrush as well, or the back of a pen. So I'm just going to use this pen here. Sometimes it's easier to use in your fingers, just to do that smoothing. And it just blends it all into one piece. It also means that it's less fragile, because if it's not stuck on properly, it will just fall off. So yeah, do be aware that this is an important process, doing the score and the slip. Use my cocktail stick. And then stick. And then smooth. Okay, you can use a bit more water after if you would like to. Okay, it looks quite funny at the moment. I've just got one little bit of hair, and I've not added any eyes yet as well. That's probably why it looks really funny. Could do it like that maybe. I think I'm going to do it like that. Yeah, I like that kind of style. And so I think I'm going to do another 2 maybe. Once I have the time, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how you could make the eyes. So you could make flat eyes, like this one here. So you just got a flat piece of clay that I've scored and slipped onto the monster, and I've just decided to do one of these, a one-eyed monster. Or you can have 2 eyes, and you could have them more bulbous, so actually rounder coming out the top of the head. Or you could, of course, draw your eyes on. So there's so many different possibilities for how you would like to do your eyes. I really quite like this bulbous look, So I'm going to create 2 little balls of clay and then score and slip them on. Oh yeah, it'd be lovely. Yeah, if you want to make one, it's air dry clay. That's what we're using today. So yeah, you can make the bigger ones or lots of littler ones. They're really, really fun to make. Really nice to feel and to use your hands and create lots of texture. So I'm going to just get a little bit of clay and I'm just rolling it into a ball. So I'm going to have these bulbous eyes on top of here. I think I might do really big eyes actually today. So I'm going to do really big eyes. Okay, we have got humongous eyes, okay, that are going to go on top of here, yes, I think I'm going to do that. So we could have one bigger eye, one smaller eye. Might do mine the same size for today, for this monster. Get a bit more clay. So, just rolling that up. Yeah, that's what I'll go with. So, before I stick them on, I'm going to add some texture. It's just easier to add texture before you stick it on. And to do this, well, you could use so many things, but I found what works well. I've got this pen in my studio which has like a little hole in the back, and if I press it into the clay, it creates a nice little indent, but also I'm not sure if you can see on camera, there's also like a little bit that's I'll just go closer and see if you can see. There's like a little dot inside there as well, and that's like almost like the little pupil of the monster's eye, the black area. So I'm going to do the same with this one. That's got a bit of a crack in it. I'm going to. The lovely thing about clay is that you can just knead it and reshape it. You won't want to do that loads. If you keep kneading and reshaping, it will dry itself out. But a few times is fine. Okay, lovely. So I've got my 2 eyes that I'm going to score and slip onto my clay monster. So score, so making the hatch marks where I want them. So doing hatch marks means going one way and then perpendicular to this. So one vertical, one not horizontal. I'm going to do this on both this clay that I'm sticking it onto, but also the actual piece that I'm sticking. So score. I'm going to do mine pointing upwards today rather than on the side, so I'm scoring the bottom of my eyes. So I've scored it, and now I'm adding or creating slip, which is the watered down clay, so a little bit of water, applying to all of the surfaces, really not much water at all, just a little bit. And then I'm just going to be sticking these onto my monster. So sometimes it needs a little bit of a wiggle, getting the clay to blend together a bit. Do make sure they are smoothed down. If I just left it like this, they'll probably fall off, because it didn't require much for me to just pull that off then. So you do need to smooth it down as well. You can use even the back of a knife, back of a paintbrush. My knife's not sharp, that's why I'm using the back of this one. I might use a pen. Ooh, I need something else that's quite thin. I'm going to see what I've got, so it's a bit thinner. I'm going to use the back of this pen. Okay. think I need a cocktail stick. I really need to get that stuck down. It's a very tiny area. I'm just smoothing that all the way around so it doesn't just fall off and I end up having a no-eyed monster. Okay, so I've done that with one of my eyes. I'm going to do it with the other one now. Right, just smoothing that. Almost done on the eyes. It'll be lovely to hear more comments on what you're creating at home, what you've decided on. I've never done ears on a monster before, but they could be fun. So yeah, I'm just smoothing down with this. Okay. You also have a choice as to whether you want to add any teeth or a tongue or anything else in the mouth. Maybe the monster's eating something. That might be quite cool. So you could do a tongue and then you could make a piece of clay food to go inside of the monster. Could do that. Okay, I'm just going to use it a little bit more. Right, smoothing that down. Okay, so then once I've done this, for the tongue, oh, I think I'm going to do a tongue, yes, because that's something that's a little bit trickier to do because it needs to go inside. So, oh, how long does it take to dry? So it depends how big your monster is, and also how thick you've done it. So it can really, really vary. I would say it takes a couple of days normally, but it really does depend. If you've done it really, really super thick, then it'll take longer. If you've done it thinner and smaller, then it'll take less time. That's a really good question. Yeah. Okay. So, just gonna roll that up, and I'm going to use my rolling pin now because I want a nice flat tongue. Just going to roll that out. I'm always doing it on top of my greaseproof paper so it doesn't stick to my table at all. And also once I've done my monster, once I've finished, I'm then going to again leave it on my greaseproof paper just to dry on there. So once I've created my flat piece of clay, I think I might texture the tongue. So I've got a paper clip here which I could use to texture, could use a bead. I might use a bead. It's got like a little hole in the middle. I think that will look like a really nice texture. So I'm going to have my monster has a textured tongue today. I'm just popping this around. It's always good to add texture before you cut out. Because if you cut out the shape that you would like and then add texture, it can sometimes distort the shape, especially if you're using a lot of texture. What starts off as a circle, once you've added loads of texture, can kind of splurge out and become more like an oval. So I'm adding my texture before I cut it out. It's got a textured piece of clay that's going to become a tongue. And then I'm going to cut this out. So it's going to be a flat back. It's going to, I'm going to stick inside my monster's mouth, and then I want the tongue to come all the way out so that it's actually sticking out of the monster's mouth. So I leave it quite long. I can always make it shorter afterwards. Just cutting this out. Okay. There we go. And now I'm just going to pop that inside. Yep, that's the length that I want. Okay. He looks funny, he's just got one little bit of hair at the moment. But we're definitely not going to leave it like that because that will fall out as it is. So all we're going to do is again score and slip. That's that technique that we do again and again. So I need a cocktail stick. I'm going to score. So the hatching, so one way and then the other way. Okay, and then I'm going to stick it to the back of the monster's mouth. So that's why I'm scoring the back of the monster's mouth. Okay, and then I'm going to get some water and I'm going to pop it on the patched areas. And then what I'm going to do, the reason why this is a bit tricky is because I'm going to have to smooth it right at the back of the monster's mouth. So you're going to have to get your finger in there and smooth it down. One way you can do this to make it more secure is not to only do it at the back of the monster's mouth, but also if you rest the tongue along the bottom of the mouth. I'll hold this up a little bit closer so you can see. Okay, so here you can see it goes, it might be a bit blurry, but it's at the back of the mouth. I've attached it there. It's gone up a little bit, but then it's actually come back down to here. So it's actually stuck to the bottom of the mouth as well. And that just gives it extra security so that it doesn't fall out. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. I am going to smooth it down at the back, but then I'm going to stick it a little bit along the bottom as well. So I'm going to pop it on its back and smooth it down. My fingers won't reach in there, so I'm just going to use the back of a pen to smooth it down. Now you can't see the back of the monster's mouth that well, so it's okay if you've smoothed it down a lot and it's just a bit bumpy because you won't be able to see it that much. I'm just really making sure that it's stuck down. Okay. And then, like I just mentioned, I'm actually going to then stick it down onto another part as well. So you've got two places where it's being stuck for extra security. So I'm going to do it near the front of the mouth this time. So scoring. Can be tempting to leave this score and slip bit out, but I really would do this because otherwise the piece that you spent so long on may well just fall apart. So just score it, add slip, now I'm sticking it, and then I'm smoothing it. The 4 S's. I'm going to smooth from behind so that you don't see all the smoothing on the front. I'm just going from behind. Lovely. Just going to smooth that down a little bit more. So the clay monster at the moment I'd absolutely love to see yours. It'd be really nice. All these different variations. So I think I'm just about finished with my monster. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over, and I can see there are just a few cracks forming, so I'm just going to smooth those over. Again, instead of just using one hand like this, if you're pushing quite hard, pop another finger inside the mouth, and that way it'll mean that you're smoothing against the surface rather than just pushing it in. It's keeping it nice and stable. Okay. So I'm going to leave this to dry, and I think this one will take a few days, quite a few days, because it's quite a large piece. It's quite bulky and heavy. So here we are. I think I've made a little friend for this one. They look fairly similar, different hairstyles. So here we are. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just briefly show you painting. So this is once it's dry. Do make sure that it's dry before you go on to this. I'm going to get some acrylic paint. If you don't have a paint palette at home, you can just use a little bit of like your greaseproof paper as your paint palette. I think I'm going to use some gold for mine. And I'm just going to squeeze a little bit onto here. Okay, I'm just going to grab my paintbrush. So I've got a paintbrush, and then I'm just going to layer it up with colour. Now it may be that you'd like to add loads of patterns, so like for example this one, I did lots of multicoloured dots all over its body, and then I did the greens as more solid colours, and the same with the tongue. If you're painting it, you may need to do a few layers to get that really bold colour. So I know for my paint, I normally use 2 or even sometimes 3 layers to get that really, really rich colour. So what I want to do first thing, I'm going to paint the eyes gold. So you can just go over this once it's dry. Paint the sections. You may need it to dry, so for example if I wanted to do the body, I would want to wait for the eyes to dry so that I can hold it in that area and then paint the body, otherwise it might all just smudge together. So it might be a few sessions of painting. And when I say a few layers as well, you'll want to leave it to dry in between your layers, because I've done one layer now on the eyes, but I'm not just going to go and do a second layer now. That won't really help that much. I'm just going to leave that to dry, probably be at least touch dry in about 20 minutes, just to then add that second coat and maybe even third to get that nice rich colour. Okie dokie. So that's the end of our workshop today. I hope you've enjoyed. It's been really lovely having you all with us today. If you have any questions at all, please just get in touch. You can find me at Flying Fish Studio. I've got a Facebook page and also a website if you'd like to see. And any questions, let me know. Art will have loads of other workshops going on, lots to get involved with, so check out those as well. So I hope you've enjoyed. It's been lovely to have you with us, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!